Hello, and welcome. You're joining me on the very first episode of The Nation in the year 2022. I'm Elaine Rapla, coming to you live from our studios right here in Wisma Bernama in the capital city of Kuala Lumpur. It is the first Monday of the year, and as with tradition, the new year generally brings an air of hope, anticipation, and excitement for a brand new start. Now, as global citizens, we are all part of the human family that has been battling the pandemic for the past 2 years. Now, this year is poised to be even more challenging as we deal with the knowledge that the COVID-19 virus and its resulting limitations or restrictions is not part and parcel of everyday life. Now, today I'm joined by a panel of thought leaders to talk about 2022 Make Hope Happen. Joining me in conversation is HETAL DOSHI, organizational psychologist, MARESA Ng, business coach, and I'm also supposed to be joined by ZHARIFF, AFANDI, life coach and motivator. Hopefully we'll be able to get him on because we were having a little bit of technical difficulties with ZHARIFF. But if it's not on, the three of us, ladies, let's start the year 2022 with a bang. Let's begin this conversation with this question. I'll start with you, HETAL, first. Now, hope, what does it mean to you? Perhaps you can give us your official definition, both from a professional and personal point of view. What does hope mean to you, HETAL?
Sure. Since the topic is called Making Hope Happen, there was an author of the book, and what he said, hope is an equal opportunity resource. So everyone has the same amount of it and have equal access to it. And hope really is the motivation to stay in the game. That's one of the toughest things, right? Like we all try to get in the game, but staying in the game is one of the hardest things. And hope is really that ability to continue instead of folding, just to stay in that goal.
Now that's really the key in terms of staying in the game. MARESA, let's talk about your definition of hope. What does hope mean to you? You deal with many in the corporate world. How do you define hope, especially when these are really challenging times? Hope is really sort of like a real far reach at this point of time. MARESA, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if I can, I think HETAL gave a very, very good definition. But I think hope is just hoping for, just looking at a more positive tomorrow, regardless of how negative and how poor the current circumstances is. It's just always hoping for something better, and that I think is hope. Just putting it out there that there's faith that things are gonna get better as we go along. So that I think is, you know, a simple definition for hope.
Now, let's quickly, just both of you, give us a little bit of a reflection with regards to, we have just passed 2021, and we've had sort of a tough year end as well, with the floods just affecting a lot of the country, even in the capital city. Any observations with regards to the past year, 2021? Perhaps we'll start with you, MARESA, first.
Yeah, I think 2020 and 2021 has just been a crazy year where I think a lot of people, I mean, whether you're running businesses, you're an SME, you're an entrepreneur, a multinational company, I think it's not fair to say that, oh, the SMEs took it hard. I think multinationals as well, corporate having to go into a remote working space, I think that has been a hit right across. I mean, people are having to work in isolated organizations. I think HETAL can definitely weigh in on this. And that kind of emotional challenge of being isolated from everybody else in your team, at the same time, having to be able to manage family, personal, and work all under one roof. So it was something that I think in early 2020, people were excited. Oh, yay, I got to work from home. But it started to quickly set in. And 2021, people were starting to feel that exhaustion, that burnout. And it's not just the remote working space. I think it was the prolonged uncertainty, that prolonged stress. I think for us as human beings, we are programmed to keep looking for challenges, for danger. You know, that's how our brains are wired. And when that is prolonged, it does take a toll physically, emotionally, mentally, and then physically on us, that a lot of people are starting to burn out. So we started to see a lot of that pressure, and so much so that in many organizations we needed to talk about empathy. Empathy was a conversation that we knew and we were having all this while, but it started to become so critical. Empathy and compassion at the workplace and among team members. That was what we started to see, I think, in 2021. Things started to People started looking forward to the opening of the economy. Hopefully there's no more lockdowns. It's changing from a pandemic into an endemic, and many people are having to learn to live with COVID. And as we were trying to climb up, the
We
flood
hit again.
really hit. Yeah,
Yeah.
hit us again, like in the gut.
So there was a lot of multiple challenges. Zarif, I think we've got you now on audio with us as well. You can hear us. Zarif, perhaps you can get your thoughts as well. We started the conversation with Marisa as well as HETAL with regards to the topic of conversation today, 2022, make hope happen. What's your definition of hope? And especially coming from you, yeah, you've had to endure lots of challenges throughout your life. How do you stay positive? How do you find that hope? Perhaps your definition of hope will give us a different perspective. Zarif. We can't hear you. Oh, I think his. Are you on mute? Okay, we're having some technical difficulty again with Zarif.
I got it.
Zarif?
Don't
Oh,
worry.
great.
Awesome. Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, Marisa, and thanks, Hital as well. It's a pleasure. Can't believe it's already a new year already. As you said, I guess the new year as general for all of us, there's a lot of hope associated to the new year. However, for me, the way I see hope is, I guess, a little bit simple, I suppose, because I like this saying. There's a saying that I really like, which is good thing, bad thing, who knows? Right. And so, whatever happens, even if it's a good thing or whether it's a bad thing, who knows really? Because, good things can also lead to our destructions. And likewise, a lot of bad things or negative things can also lead us to our salvation and also lead us to better things. And so I know and I resonate with what all our guests have said before in terms of like the last couple of years have of course been extremely difficult for all of us. And in fact, if anything, it's highlighted us, right? I mean, it highlights the best of us, and it
Yeah.
also highlights the worst of us as well, right? I mean, I've never seen such fear and fear mongering that was all around us the last couple of years as well, right? But yeah, as hope is right, as we pass through each chapter or each phase of our lives, I used to think New Year's Eve was a big thing. To be honest with you, I feel right now it is in terms of like there's a small symbolic nature to the day, but each day is important. I think it's not just the New Year's Eve is important. Every day is important, and New Year's Eve is in no way more important than any other day. Tomorrow's another day, right? Today
Yeah.
is already past New Year, and
Yeah.
it's just as important, really. And so I do believe that you take each day as it goes. Some days you're full on, some days might be more exciting, some days might be more busy, some days might be more mundane, some days might be more boring or even more difficult for that matter. But the
Yeah.
other thing I really like about the nature of the world is that it all passes, everything passes through,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we've got whether it's a good thing or bad thing, you could be on top today but be at the bottom tomorrow and vice versa, and all things pass. So
Yes.
looking through the new year, I'm just glad to have the opportunity personally to still be alive, to still survive the year. And on a personal note, I really hope to be able to continue this journey with more, with just more the good things. Hopefully, right? Just hopefully to be able to do more good, to be able to further find our purpose as well. For me, I always believe that we should be operating on a purposeful manner rather than just stumbling our ways purposely, right?
Purposelessly, yes, exactly. I like to
Right.
I like to sort of catch onto that phrase that you mentioned. This too shall pass, because like you said, no matter how high you are, no matter how low you are, the next day will come and you have to face that new challenge that the following day brings. But speaking of the new day, the new year, psychologically we are affected by it. We have this sort of like brand new sort of like turning over a new leaf. Psychologically, we think that this is a new start as opposed to any other day. But I think this is a mental thing that we as human beings. I'd just like to share two quotes that my producers shared. This is from Muhammad Ali, The Soul of a Butterfly, Reflections on Life's Journey. He says, if my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it. So, those are things that, motivationally we hear it, but we need to internalize it to happen. And the other one was from Winston Churchill. To improve is to change, and to be perfect is to change often. So change is all part of life. And that, like you mentioned, the daily occurrence. When today is done, it's set aside, and we can move on to the next day. So let's talk about the reflections. Earlier we spoke, Maresa talked about the reflections 2021. HETAL, perhaps you can share your observations for 2021. You, I would assume, would have had a lot of engagement with people, and how it has, sort of whatever trends, whatever patterns, whatever observations, whatever sharing and feedback that you've seen. Perhaps you can share that with us, HETAL.
Sure. We did a study across several organizations in Malaysia, and we've had a sample size of about 500 people. And the top issues that have emerged were, number one, high work pace, not workload, but the pace. The second thing was work-life conflict, where work-life conflict used to be a lunch talk, but now it's right at the front end of issues that people face. We've also got influence at work, meaning people do not feel that they have the voice to be able to influence the way that they work and the kind of work that they are having to do in order to achieve outcomes. And lastly, a big wave of organizational justice and respect is becoming a bit of a concern. So more and more people are fighting against injustice and disrespect in the workplace. And that used to be something that people used to probably think about, but now it has become really vocal. One thing which I thought was really, really fascinating in the study was that despite all of the challenges, you would think motivation would be quite low, considering we've been talking about mental health related issues. But the highest possibility that we saw in human nature or human beings in the workplace was that motivation levels were still very high, despite the fact that they were burnt out. The other things that were affected, however, was though motivation was very high, the ability to navigate and the creation of opportunities to be successful was a bit lower. And one of the major reasons why we found that to be was the level of social disconnect. So people were not leveraging on the energy of each other to be able to become more able and to be more successful as well. But very quickly, you would find that people will be able to achieve that. So in just a 1 or 2 day upskilling workshop, you find that people are very, very much more able and very much more successful in difficult situations. Human beings are actually super phenomenal.
Yeah, we are extremely resilient, and one of the things I want to talk about is that how quickly we adapt. Of course, let's take a look at 2019. We were living a completely different life. 2020, New Year came, and everybody was expecting 2020 to be that big year. That number 2020, especially for Malaysia, Wawasan 2020, we had high hopes, high expectations. Of course, we did not have a flying car, but we had hopes for the future. And of course, by February, by March, everything sort of halted. We all were stuck at home. Everybody was so afraid, fearful, uncertain about what the future holds. Everybody was cooped up. We saw animals reclaiming the streets, reclaiming rivers, reclaiming nature. And I think that sort of brought a little bit of hope as well back to us, where nature can survive and reclaim if we allow it to. So all those talk about climate change is of not being able to reverse. I think those are conversations that we need to relook at, because it's all completely possible. It's to what extent we as human beings want to make that happen. And that also resonates with us as personal individuals. Hence, I wanted to talk about individual challenges. Perhaps we'll start with Maresa this time around. let's talk about how the expectations you have personally as an individual at the start of 2021, because post 2020 everybody sort of thought that 2021 would be the year that everybody sort of rebounded back. How were your expectations in 2021 versus right now 2022? How does it compare? Should we be having expectations in the first place? What would your recommendations be instead, Marisa?
I think that's a very, very good point, Elaine. And if I can, I think the whole lot of leaders and entrepreneurs, there is this thing called it's future thinking. It's the future orientedness of their behavior, where if you're a leader of an organization or you're a business owner, you run an SME, regardless, a lot of our studies show that these leaders tend to be future oriented, and that was a good, very, very good attribute to have, but it started to take a toll, because when you're future oriented, the need to plan, the need to have certainty, the need to be able to set targets, outcomes, that became something that was a huge question mark. I mean, many of us were just going through that, and one of the things that I encourage.
Planning doesn't exist anymore.
You can plan all this stuff and then lock down and here we go again. And so one of the things we cultivated, myself included, was to be more present. Just take every day at a time, including your New Year's Eve. We had circling around not a to-do list, a to-don't list. just let go. And that's one of the things that I think as leaders we found hard to do, and it was making such a stressful environment for not us, our employees, the people around us, our families. And so that was one of the key ways to just be more resilient, is to be able to just, all right, I'm just gonna let it go with the flow. And that's critical this 2022 as well, because we don't know what's gonna happen.
Exactly. I really like that, letting go. I think it's people perhaps laugh a lot about it because of Frozen, Let It Go. We hear that song, but it's really important to know and learn how to let go. ZHARIFF, perhaps you can give us some thoughts on this with regards to letting go. And I think a lot of people look to perhaps individually, either ZHARIFF, Marisa, or yourself, to guidance, for motivation. But individually, I'm sure you guys have other challenges that you have to go through yourself to bring yourself to that space as well. ZHARIFF, your thoughts?
I think what Marisa said was really spot on. I think one of the things that a lot of us live by generally is expectations. And so I think that's something very prevalent. It's even almost natural to some degree. But like what I've learned in my lifetime is that the best thing about this is not about expecting, right? I mean, you can kind of like want things, but you start learning that, you can expect something to happen, but it might not at all happen the way you want it, or the time you want it, or to the person that you want it to happen. And so I think it's really taught us, I'm not just now, I think just, but obviously, as I said, I do believe like the last couple of years has highlighted a lot of the situations, but I think many of us have started to learn a lot more that you just got to let go, like what you said, like you just, instead of expecting, I think the more important thing is really to appreciate, the meaning that the appreciation of being able to live and do. And I think people start realizing that growing isn't just about doing, but there's also, like what you said, a cultivation process where it's not all about doing and seeing results. Sometimes you just have to stay still, or kind of like, cultivate not just the external results, but also the internal, since you can't be going out anyway, right? And so I think a lot of us started to realize that and learn that. And I think this is also quite normal in terms of like all conflict, and whether it's war or whether it's natural disasters, you do see kind of like both worlds. You see the best of us and the worst of us, and you start seeing how important it is to not just like plan and do and kind of hope everything becomes, but sometimes it's also important to sit and kind of be quiet and internally reflect as well. And I think we had a lot of that the last couple of years specifically. And I don't think that it's something to go. I think, I mean, generally it's important to find that balance, and now we know that
Exactly.
it's imperative for that to happen.
I was about to say, finding that balance in order for us to be able to move forward. Now, we have about 6 minutes to go. I wanted to give viewers out there sort of like tips in terms of how to move forward. HETAL, perhaps you can share with us what are your outlooks or projections for 2022? How best do we face these oncoming challenges that's sure to come because COVID's here to stay? Challenges will be, continually coming. Mental health is still going to be a struggle. How do we prepare ourselves for these hurdles that are coming? 2022 is already here. We have another year to face before we perhaps sit again at the end of 2022 and talk about 2023. HETAL, let's start with you.
Yeah, so just as you're saying that, my whole nervous system is kicking in again. Like I've got so many things to do as you're saying that. So one of the things that I definitely would recommend is for everyone to not get into the fear-based mode all over again and the go mode, because we've done this 3 years now. Next year changes, blah blah blah. So I would definitely say, as what MARESA was saying earlier, let go. But a lot of us feel that we are having to let go, and being human beings, the thing that we love the least is losing. So do appreciate that we're not only letting go, we're letting come. So I think one thing that is very important for all organizations is to really sit down and listen to Spice Girls song, that wanna be, what do I really, really want? And really, just really focus on that one thing that you really, really want as an organization. And apply something called the law of least effort, meaning, let's not go wild and think that motion, doing a lot of work will lead us there. But what is the thing that we could do the least that we could do to be able to get there? That could be quite valuable. So in summary, I would say do not use a fear-based approach to tackle 2022. We've already done that many times. Second thing, want to be technique and least effort to get there, because it's very exhausting. This year, the past few years is exhausting. So save your energy.
Save your energy. So great advice there. Fear is not going to get you anywhere. Face your fears, confront it. I remember this saying that it is not about having fears. Fears is normal, but it's about how we act in spite of the fears that we have that's going to take us to where we need to go. And I think I just wanted to bring up something with regards to the pandemic. It has impacted a lot of people in many ways. Some have had to face close family member deaths. Others have been impacted in multiple ways, economically, business-wise, income-wise, lifestyle-wise. Choices with regards to being able to socialize individually or even with family has been taken away or has changed dramatically. So a lot of these things have changed. So priorities have also adjusted and changed along the way. And people have really looked at what is important to them in moving forward in life. And I think one of the things is that there have been observations that the employment scene has changed because a lot of people have realized that, they can work from home, they can choose differently, they may not want to work with an organization anymore. And apparently there's this great resignation globally with regards to, what are the options available. MARESA, your thoughts for 2022, the outlook, those who are in terms of personal and professional, any thoughts that you share with those that are listening today?
Yeah, thank you. I think one thing that comes to my mind is intentionality versus attentional. So intentional versus attention is whether we're reacting to the environment, we're reacting to it, all the external stuff that are happening, whether it's social media, it's the floods, it's all kinds of Mother Nature happening to us or happening for us, is whether we can learn from it. I mean, it's just a twist in your words, but whether we choose to be victimized by it. And I think at the end of the day, it's a choice. All of us are going through very challenging times. I think many people will say, MARESA, no problem for you. Everything can go digital, ma. Use Zoom, ma. Your business runs. I say, oh no. I have my own challenges, and I tell every CEO, every leader here, it's one very crucial part of self-care by design. Right. If everything is going to change out there without our control and we don't know what's going to happen next, one thing that we can do as a constant is self-care. We cannot be depleting ourselves and throwing ourselves and thinning ourselves out and giving ourselves self-care. For example, exercise, our own nutrition, our own how we touch point with our employees, all of that, even where we take our companies. Many of our SMEs and organizations have challenges with, you know, keeping on board very high overheads, hundreds and thousands of dollars, Elaine, and I think ZHARIFF and HETAL can tell you the same thing. But there are
Marisa, I have to sort of interrupt. So we're running out of time. ZHARIFF, can you summarize in just one sentence, because I'm just left a minute. Your thoughts, your last sentence.
I think, like every year, and this is not just because it's the new year, every day, in fact, the most important thing is to do the right things. And what do the right things mean, essentially? Because if you want the right results, you have to do the right things. And in fact, what HETAL was saying just now reminded me of the saying "Wu Wei Wu," which is kind of doing while not doing, right? And so, in many ways, by do just many of us, we're just so focused on doing things, yet nothing happens, right? But there is a magic to non-doing that can actually make things happen. And non-doing doesn't mean not doing anything, meaning it means that you don't stress over the things that you can't control, meaning that you don't get upset over the things that are not related to you as well, right? And you don't get your expectations to consume you. You don't get your expectations to drive you. Instead, you get driven by your appreciation and gratitude. So I hope everyone kind of finds that appreciation, finds that gratitude, find their right things. Because if you're not going to be doing the right things, you're never going to achieve the right results.
Thank you so much, guys. That's all the time that we have. ZHARIFF, AFANDI, of course, life coach and motivator, Maresa Ng, business coach, and HETAL DOSHI, organizational psychologist, speaking to us about 2022, make hope happen. That's all the time that we have. In times of trauma and when the future is uncertain, we will be pulled in all sorts of ways. But this pandemic has shown us that we are interconnected as a species, and for us to truly thrive, we need to rise above the individual. Thanks for staying with me till the end of the very first episode of The Nation of the year 2022. My wish for the year 2022 for anyone watching today is for you to find purpose and to gain clarity. Have an amazing 2022 year ahead. I'm Elaine. Bye for now.